call is all about to understand the profound impact of a father's absence, both emotionally and physically in our lives. And Marielle, she will be our guide for this 10-week journey that we will be having with her. And she is one of our guide at Living Consciously and has delivered very powerful programs in the past. And as some of you already know, that she specializes in shadow work, voice dialogue facilitation, and she supports women who grew up with distant and absent fathers. She has also led several shadow work courses and workshops across, I think, various platforms. Uh, so, in this conversation, we will dive deep into this course and what this all will entail. This course is, as you all know, that it is designed only for 15 women, where Marielle will guide you towards deep embodied transformation. There'll be activities. Every session is designed on a very different theme, and it will be like 15 powerful women coming together and exploring, understanding, accepting. So thank you so much for everyone for being here today, and thank you, Marielle, for offering this very, very much needed and very powerful course.
Thank you for having me, Shalu. We've done a few courses and workshops together, and you have a great community, and it's always a pleasure.
Yeah, and see, we keep calling you back. Yeah, okay. So I want to start this conversation first, Marielle, about understanding your own personal journey and why this work matters to you. Like, can you share about your personal journey and how has the absence of your father shaped your life and how you have worked through your own wounds? If you can walk us through that.
Yes. Well, I will never say that I'm thankful for my father for, everything that happened. I will never say that, but there is a reason why our lives are the way they are. And we live certain experiences, and they certainly led me to shadow work and what I do now. So my journey was a journey of a lot of struggling with, my own reactions and my own way of behaving, like, having strong reactions to coworkers or, friends or family members. And I remember that I didn't like that. I thought, I don't want to behave this way. I don't want to do this. And when you are wounded, then you respond to the world from a wounded place. Even if there isn't any specific intention on the other person, you take things very personally. And so I was for many years going about in life thinking that there must be something wrong with me, I'm not intelligent enough, I'm not capable enough, all those things. And I wanted to be free of that. So the moment I heard that the way you react is the normal consequence of your past and your experiences and your circumstances, that there is nothing wrong with you, that there is a reason, a very valid reason why you do the things or you take the decisions. That was so liberating. I felt like a very heavy weight lifted off my shoulders, and I wanted to know more. And so I dived into this work, and this made me finally be able to look at myself and look at, the way I behaved from a compassionate perspective instead of from a judgment. I was all the time judging myself. This is not right. This is not right. This is not right. No, not this way. I'm sure that many women can relate to this way of being. And so it opened, you know, my mind to, okay. Because also another thing that I heard is there are deeper forces that we are completely unaware of that drive our actions and drive our life. So it's, and it's normal that we grow up with the idea that we take the decisions, because we want to take those decisions, and we take those decisions rationally, and that, or we react in a certain way rationally, and that we have the power to change that through willpower. But not at all. Not at all, at least without that being very energy draining. Just using willpower takes a lot of energy. And so suddenly I could, feel free and understand myself and have a path. I didn't know which way to go. I just knew the way of repressing myself and, consciously not doing this or not doing that. But then I found another path, the path of connecting with the shadow. And so that is what led me to be so much with shadow.
Wow. Wow. There are so many important things that you have just shared, and you have such a powerful journey, Marielle. I was going through your website and I was reading your story where you wrote, I will read it out, and I found this very powerful, where you wrote that, I learned that willpower alone is powerless when deeper and unconscious forces at play. And this realization brought a deeper level of acceptance, allowing me to see my struggles in a new light. So sometimes when we feel that, oh, there is, we can heal it, or we can reason with it. But there are, a lot of unconscious forces that are at play, and that takes away a lot of shame from us, that we are not consciously, deciding our triggers and how we react, and then there is a lot of shame that is attached to it. And in traditional therapy also, they talk about that, you can talk through that, what you're feeling, but there is a lot that needs to be addressed. So thank you, Marielle. Thank you. That's very powerful. Uh, um, I'm sure that you had a lot of realization through this journey. If I have to ask, what were your biggest realizations um, during this journey, and how they have shaped your approach to this work?
Yes. I think my biggest realization was that shadow work does not need to be a journey of pain and endurance and suffering. And, I've heard so many people who are in shadow work saying shadow work is exhausting, but it's so worth it. Like there is, and I understand that because the shadow is something that can create a lot of pain, a lot of suffering, because it's parts of us that we don't like. Not only we don't like, we really reject. It's really we by no means to be that which is in our shadow. A part of our shadow is that. And when you have an experience, having had an absent father is an experience that makes you leave certain things as a child. Like you see that you are not being loved as maybe you see other, cousins or friends. You see their relationship with their fathers, but that is missing. that is not for you, right? So in a way, as a child, we can feel that we are not loved. And having that kind of experience, of course, not being loved is something very painful. It is a matter of survival. Receiving love and knowing that you are loved is a matter of, physical survival and psychological survival. And so looking at that truth directly can create a lot. Can create a lot. So my realization, and this was based on an experience, I talk about it in my science. As I got in touch with all this work, and I decided at some point to take a certification and learn about shadow work and all that. And during the course of doing the certification, one day I had a specific experience where I knew that I had a shadow trigger. It was a massive shadow trigger. And, it was from a friend who had said something about something that I said in a WhatsApp group. And I was so angry, I was very angry at him, considering, is it worth to keep having this relationship with this person, and all those things. You start focusing your attention outward. But I realized I'm having a very big shadow trigger. And I know, because I'm learning this process, that now it's the time to turn inward, to stop focusing on my friend and turn inward. And during this process, what happened was something amazing. I was angry, and I was very hurt. But at some point, all that turned into, somehow that I couldn't explain. It turned into, like a very physical, pleasurable feeling. And, I felt like energy running through my body. And so what happened is that it felt very good. So I stayed there, feeling that feeling. And in that moment, I stayed for half an hour. And during this time, I experienced an instant shift. It's like my friend's comment had made me entangled, making me identify myself too much with a certain identity. Right in that moment was the one that is unfairly treated. I was really tricked by, I am the one who is unfairly treated. And during this time, that identification, it just dissolved. It just disappeared. And at the end of the process, when all this feeling, this energy that I'm talking about, running through my body stopped, then the trigger was gone. I looked again at my friend's comment, and I didn't react to it. I felt neutral about it, and I was so surprised. I was like, but how can it be? Just half an hour ago, I was even thinking on, breaking this relationship, and now I'm not reacting. It's like it's even irrelevant, this comment. So I had no idea what had happened. For a long time, I, I spoke with my teachers, and I read authors, everything I could read. And eventually I understood what had happened in that experience. So for me, that is when you do shadow work in an optimal way. When you get to have this experience, and it's very pleasurable. So, and it's not that you're not gonna suffer ever. Okay, it's not that you're not going to feel anything. We do, and those things happen. Okay, But when that happens, you can take over, and you have the capacity, you have the tools, and you have the ability to take charge and and switch that to this other different kind of experience. So for me, that was the biggest revelation. This does not need to be painful at all. And my idea with the course is to equip women with everything so that they can create this kind of experience in their own process.
Wow, very powerful, very powerful. Thank you, Marielle, for sharing. I heard you using this word shadow trigger. Can you talk a little bit about this? Because I feel that many of us don't understand the word. Yeah.
Yes. Well, the shadow are all the parts of us that we don't like, we repress, we reject. And so we repress them very, very deeply in our mind, into our unconsciousness. And so we lose sight of it. We don't have, we don't even have an idea that they are there. Or it can be parts of us that they never have a chance to develop. Right? Those can also be in the shadow. For instance, if for the specific case of women absent fathers, if you never felt the love of your father, then that is little girl that is, receives the attention and receives the love of her father is a part of you that never had any chance to develop. So that's also emotion. Not everything is painful, but there is a lot that is painful. So when, the unconscious speaks a symbolic language, and during our life, everything around us, people and situations and objects and animals and everything, they can act as symbols. So when your shadow, which is in your unconscious, resonates with a symbol that you read through reading life, right? For instance, if you watch a film, and suddenly something happens and you just start crying, right? You get very, very emotional. You get very touched. So that is an example of a symbol. Your mind, a symbol God created. Your shadow understands that language and it reacts. So a shadow trigger, it's when you read one piece symbols and then something that is in your shadow reacts. So, for instance, in the case of my friend made a very, not very thoughtful comment back to me. And I felt very unfairly treated. And so in this case, feeling unfairly treated, that is a very big deal. And we have a lot of issues with unfairness. If we see someone being treated unfairly, we react, right? So that is a shadow trigger. That is a shadow trigger. You're seeing someone in a specific scenario, something happening, this symbol gets created in your mind and your shadow reacts. And shadow triggers are very strong. Are very strong. So especially if you react in a certain way and you react strongly, you can be very, but that is a shadow trigger.
Wow. Thank you, Marielle, for simplifying it. And I could connect with this so deeply. And I could see where still my shadow triggers. I know that there will not be one day when you feel that, I'm healed. But then you can equip, or maybe through this program also, we we can equip ourselves with better tools like you have equipped yourself to deal, because life will going to throw a lot of challenges on us, and there'll be a lot of things that will trigger us. And but thank you for sharing this so beautifully. And so my next question to you, Marielle, coming back to the theme of uh, this 10-week journey, uh, what do you feel, and how does having an absent or emotionally unavailable father can affect a woman's self-worth and our relationships with life and relationships with people? And yeah, and are there any like common patterns that you have seen um, in women, who are carrying this wound with respect to their father in their life?
Yes, I think one of the common, underlying things that is very common is that this woman didn't have a chance to develop a solid sense of worth and this validation coming from within. So if you can't find this validation, right, within you, then you look for validation on the outside, right? You need someone to look back at you and say, it's okay, you're doing right. Okay, it's okay, you are good. You deserve being here. Even you deserve taking space, physical space in this life, right? And so when you can find that in your inside, when you put that on the outside, it can show in many ways. So for instance, if we're talking about having a partner, it can show in a way that maybe you found a partner that has the same issue as you, who also needs to be validated. And so you create this kind of codependent relationship in which everything, it's like you can't have a life of your own and your partner doesn't have a life of his own or her own, this doesn't matter about orientation. And it's everything about being together. And it's like you create this relationship in which like you're giving everything, he's giving everything, but you're like no independent person. Like you don't want to get out of that enmeshment. So that's one of the things, and there is a lot of people living with that. That's one of the ways it can show up. Other way it can show up is if you are someone who needs to feel connected with your partner to feel safe, then you are going to look for this validation. And this can make your partner feel like, like he or she is like used by you, like there is no way for them to have, a free life with no worries, but they always have to have in mind to be there for you. It's like being at your service in a way that doesn't feel good, right? Or so that's another way how it can show up. And however, if you're someone who are more introverted or more avoidant, then what can happen is that if you don't feel the love from your partner, then you can go inward and you can isolate yourself. Right? Maybe you have a very rich inner life, but you start distancing yourself from your partner, from co-workers, from family. It's like life hurts me, then I isolate myself. So depending on how you are, you're going, on your circumstances, you're going to react in a different way. Things are going to show up in a different way. But the underlying thing is this lack of inner validation. So for someone who lacks the inner validation, life is calling her to do the journey that it takes to grow that inner validation. You know, and that is going to involve meeting your shadow, which, by the way, shadow work is something that is going to happen to you whether you want it or not. It's a normal process of the mind. So it's going to happen to you even if you do it, go through it consciously or unconsciously. And you want to learn how to do that in a conscious way. Another thing that I also see very common is that a woman doesn't learn, you know, to pay attention to herself, to learn to get herself. She doesn't know very well who she is, what she likes, what her needs are. And in the case of, you know, it can be, you know, lack of father attention. It can be, but that is not the only experience that creates lack of inner validation or not knowing who you are or not knowing yourself. It can be other experiences as well. In this course, we are gathering a group of women with a common kind of experience. But so if you don't know who you are, you don't know what you like. One shadow trigger that you're gonna have is when you see someone that is very sure about herself, who knows who she is and knows what she likes. And this shadow trigger will show in the form of either something unpleasant, like who does she think she is, you know, and you can be that way, that's very, very inappropriate. Or it can show up in the form of admiration. You admire this person. Okay? And so that is another common underlying thing that can also show up in various different ways.
Wow. Thank you for sharing about this entire, you know, aspect of how it shows up in our lives um, and how literally it has, but how I could recognize with this, it has impacted like every area of my life. And so thank you, Marielle, for expressing this so beautifully. So you have titled this program as Igniting Our Inner Fire. And so can you tell us a little bit about what kind of fire that you're talking about and how does reclaiming this fire can help women or us to shift from feeling stuck to feeling empowered and alive?
Yes, yes. This has to do with the realization that I was talking about earlier. So the things that we push into the shadow, you know, it takes a lot of energy to push things into the shadow. But, and then you start feeling that you're bearing an emotional weight. And this bearing of emotional weight can have been so constant and for such a long time in your life that you may even have stopped noticing it. And you go about in life with this weight without even knowing that you have this weight. But when you can release that weight, then you can feel the difference. And so when you release this weight, it creates an experience of inner fire. So when you're able to approach your shadow, the shadow has a lot of energy attached, a lot of energy. When you are able to meet your shadow, make it come into your consciousness, all that energy is going to be released. It's what I was talking about in my experience. I was feeling like energy flowing through my body. So it's this kind of experience which you're looking for. So that is what I call the inner fire. It's like when you are capable of releasing all that energy. So to do that, you have to learn how to do it, and you have to know how to approach your shadow. And the shadow, it becomes so painful because if it becomes painful, it's because it has a lot of power over you. It is overpowering you. So it's very important when approaching the shadow to do it from an empowered perspective. And knowing what to do. And this is going to take, practice and learning, but something completely doable. You are equipped with the knowledge, with the tools to approach your shadow in an empowered way and take charge of the process. And then you will have this experience, which is not at all painful. It's totally the contrary. It feels very good. It feels so good. You want more of it.
Wow, I'm very excited about this journey, this 10-week journey. And I'm sure that it is going to, open up a lot for us, and it'll equip us with a lot of tools and techniques. So can you let us know or walk us through what this 10-week journey would look like? Are there any key exercises or practices that will help us or that we will be experiencing in the program? Or can you talk a little bit about this?
Yes. So the course starts with diving into spiritual knowledge, which for me is key to gain in this empowered perspective. Once we understand, for instance, that we are not at the mercy of circumstances, but we hold a lot of power. Once we know that there is meaning and there is purpose with everything in our lives. Maybe every time I see someone with some kind of painful experience, I once heard this that I like very much. We all come with a certain mission, a certain purpose, or it can be many missions and many purposes to do in this life. And to carry them out, we need the experiences that we've had. So when you have a painful past experience, right, the thing that I always ask myself, what comes to my mind is, what is this person's mission to need to have that kind of past experience? So it is a totally different way of seeing life. Also, life is not personal. We take things on a personal level, but things are not personal. Although it's very convincing that they are. So there is, a deepening and learning to live and understand life through spiritual lens. But it gives you a very, very powerful way to gain this empowered perspective. And with empowerment, I don't mean, self-righteousness. I don't mean domination. I don't mean any of that. It's none of that. Empowerment is actually what our normal state of being would be if we didn't have all these, all these judgments, social, expectations, and all those things that we learn throughout our lives. There is absolutely nothing exceptional with empowerment. What is exceptional is with our disempowerment, which we are so used to, right? That is exceptional. But there is nothing, self-righteousness, nothing being over someone else about this experience of feeling empowered. So the course starts with that spiritual diving. And then we are going through, certain techniques to approach the shadow, to get into uncover it, to get into this experience of energy liberation, this inner fire release, and amplifying that. So some techniques, for instance, which, by the way, you experience shadow work in this way. It is a very healing experience. And this pleasurable sensation I'm talking about is similar to what we feel when we heal from a physical wound. When you heal from a physical wound and you feel that the wound is healing correctly, then it feels good, right? It feels good. It feels it's healing. So you should expect the same with emotional healing. And this emotional healing, it happens at the edge of the comfort zone. So you go at the edge of your comfort zone and go a little bit further, and you stay there. You don't go too much into the shadow, which is, by the way, something that is very common. Then once it happened to me at the beginning. Once I knew that about the shadow, and meeting the shadow is going to help you with your issues, then it's very natural to say, okay, I'm all in. I'm 100% in. I want to go and dive into the shadow as much as possible, as deep as, I can. And that is not the best way to do. So there is a lot to process there. There is a lot to stay there. And in every moment we take one step, and this step sometimes is big, other times it's small, but it's as much as you can take without overwhelming your nervous system and getting into pain and survival mode. And so we are going through some techniques. What basically the most important, it's what I do on a regular basis. Everything is there in the course. And we will need some aspects of ourselves, such as the inner critic, which is very, very responsible for many of our shadows, and the inner child, which in many cases it's in our shadow. So we are bringing that into the place.
Wow. Thank you for this. I've never thought about, understanding empowerment the way you have expressed. You said that it means it is a normal state of being, and it's very powerful. And so, Marielle, like there are many women who wants to who had, like, absent father, or they are carrying the father wound, and there are a lot of undigested energies or emotions that they are carrying in their body, in their psyches. And sometimes when we hear that a course like this is coming, we get excited, but at the same time, we also feel scared. We feel a lot of fear that maybe it might open up, or it will open up certain emotional pockets, or um, maybe it will overwhelm me, and I don't want to, like, handle this. My life is going and I'm doing my work. Why should I get into, this dimension? And so is there anything that you would like to say to them, to us? Um, if you can address that fear, and that, that insecurity, that, maybe it will open up a lot for us, we will not be able to handle it. But what can I hear, that it is going to, maybe, it is going to empower us. It will equip us with tools, and we'll be a lot more self-aware, and we'll have a lot of, that power, which we feel that it's not there. Sometimes we feel that, there is something that is missing, and maybe that can be that missing piece of puzzle for some of us. So if we can talk a little bit about how we can tackle, or that fear of diving into this.
Well, one of the things that I would say is that many times, when we have painful pasts, we run away from them. I run away from my past for decades, by the way.
Hmm.
Didn't want to know anything about it. And we get used to that.
Hmm.
We disconnect from our past. We disconnect from who we were back
Hmm.
then. We
Hmm.
lose touch with it. We don't want to think about it. We don't want to hold that in our mind ever.
Hmm.
And staying in touch, with your past self
Hmm.
is very important. You don't know how important it is until you've done it. You don't know what you do,
Hmm.
but it is very important, very important.
Hmm.
So that is just one thing to take into account. Another
Hmm.
thing to take into account is your shadow is 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 going to use every tiny opportunity to emerge,
Hmm.
to give itself the chance to be integrated within your consciousness. Every chance. So you may going through your life now and saying, I'm okay, and that's totally okay. I don't need to do this work, and that's totally okay. I mean, this work is for women who feel called to do that.
Hmm.
But I, and it's my experience that I ran away from this for, as I said, decades.
Hmm.
And it is my experience, your shadow is going to show up at one point or another. If you need 5 more years to make that realization, okay, go 5 more years. Do you need 15 more years? Another cycle of 15 years to get to that realization? Okay. I mean, your shadow is not in a hurry,
Hmm.
but it's going to be there, and it's going to show at one point or another. So that's also something to take into account. That's how we work. It's our mind. That's how it is. We tend toward wholeness. The mind tends toward wholeness. So everything that has been dissolved, it's craving. It's
Hmm.
craving to come out.
Hmm.
Okay. And another thing which is important to take into account is everything that you don't take about yourself in this life, someone else will take care of it.
Hmm.
It will be next generation, it will be someone in your surrounding, the next generation of someone in your surrounding, it will be in your next life. That energy needs to come out in some way. Okay, so now knowing everything I know and having come to this knowledge and to this work, I think late in my life, what I think I always have in mind is how different my life would have been if I had known all these 20 years. I wish I had. I wish I had, but I didn't. And well, never, it's better late than never. But you want to learn to live life consciously. And what we're doing here is living life consciously. It's living consciously. So that's what I would say. Another thing that I would say is I totally get that things can feel scary. And that you can feel a lot of resistance. And if you feel a lot of resistance, then the resistance is the place to start. I mean, every step of the way, you take in as much as you can take without overwhelming your system. Okay, there is no need to rush. There is no need to go beyond what you can cope with. And in this course, I don't want this to be a course in which we are all sharing, how much we suffered in the past, and create this empowered circle where we start relating with each other's stories, but without the tools and without the means to do that, as I say, from an empowered perspective, being able to hold space for that. That is not my idea. That's not where I would.
Wow. Thank you for very powerfully and wonderfully answering this, Marielle.
Thank you.
Yeah. So this brings us to the end of our conversation, and now I would like to open the floor for if there are any questions that you have, you can just unmute yourself and you can write it in the chat box. And if there are no questions, then it's okay.
Good evening, everyone. This is Garima, and I have a quick question. I don't know if it will make sense to what we have discussed here, but just thinking about the preventive part of it. So let's say we were talking about women. So considering the age bracket, what are the preventive things that can be done for the young upcoming girls who are going to be women in a couple of years? So let's say the adolescents around us or the teenagers around us. How can they they participate, or how can they benefit from this program? Please ask me a question if I have not made
Yeah.
myself clear.
You mean as something, and by the way, hi Karima, nice to talk to you again.
Thank you.
Do you mean in a way that for someone who has a young age to participate in the course, or just as a generic question, how to make this knowledge more approachable to them?
To be precise, both of them, to be part of the course, plus how generically we can help people or the young girls to overcome such challenges.
Yes. Well, that's a very good question. For participating in the course, You can't be too young. You can't be too young. You need, like you need to be 18 at least and really feel called to do this work. It has to be something that really calls you. And to get to that point, to get someone to that point, I don't have a clear answer to that, but I have a daughter, she's 15 years old. Unfortunately, I came to this work late, so that I see that a lot of my shadow has been transferred to her. And so I try to help her. And what I try to do is normalize talking about certain things. Like, like that they learn that the way they behave, it's not only based off what they decide on a conscious level, but that there are deeper forces they don't know. And so to validate their actions and to validate their feelings, and that there are things there that we can see, not them and not, well, if we do shadow work, we learn to see those things. Of course, that's what we are doing. But normalizing, talking about this knowledge, because it is so unfamiliar to us, right? We don't learn to, shadow work is a process. It is about gaining self-mastery about yourself. And we don't learn these things. In the family, we don't learn them. At school, we don't learn them. So we are very illiterate about the mind. Things are starting to get into schools, right? Like emotional intelligence and, like behavioral change, and very cognitive behavioral orientation, like pick up a thought. This thought makes you have a certain emotion. So if you change this thought, you will change your emotion. That is a very superficial way, by the way, of going about changing your emotions. It's not that it's useless. For some people, it works very well. If it works, yeah, perfect. Why not? But there is a lot to go. There is a lot that we, as society, we need to go. And in my experience, at least with my daughter, I can't sit with her to talk to her, about these things. And I'm so passionate that sometimes I talk to her about, next lives and in karma and this and that. And there is a point where she's a teenager and she just, mom, go away. And she's very receptive, right? Like she's very spiritual and she does spiritual rituals and all that. But even though it's a very difficult age, so I think the best way you could help them is by normalizing the language, normalizing the concepts, spirituality principles, for instance. We have the power to create. Our mind is very powerful. There is a connectedness of everything. We are already connected with that which we desire. We are not at the mercy. Life doesn't happen to us. We hold the power to create, right? One of the things that creates a lot of suffering is thinking that we have this life and that's all. And then we're born here, we die here, and everything we get is what we get in between these points. But if you open your mind to that, you are living just one life, and that your soul lives infinite lives, multiple lives. And what you will not get in this life, well, manifesting for the next time. You know, it's these things that help you acquire this empowering perspective. And I think the best is to normalize all this because it's it has been so excluded from our lives. So that would be my answer.
Thank you, Marielle. And Karima is writing. Thank you for sharing and bringing clarity. So we have Seema writing. She's saying that I can't speak as my little daughter is with me. I'm a single mother and my daughter is 4 years old. How is absence or very little presence, video calls or 2 holidays in a year of her father might affect her? And again, she is writing. She is being raised with women around and little male energy. I observe, I just can't read the,
Yeah.
okay.
It's like she's
She likes
writing,
to.
I
Okay,
observe she likes to hug her friend's
the
father.
friends and father. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, that's lovely. She is taking in this male energy from her friends' fathers, and her friends' fathers may be, role modeling for her what a man should be. So that the fact that she has that, that's very valuable. That's very good. I think the best way you can help your daughter in this situation is by, letting her know that the fact that her father is far away and that he doesn't see her often is to not make it personal on her so that she doesn't take it personal. It's not that dad doesn't love me and that's why he is far away. That's why he doesn't see me often. That's why, but that's, she is a little girl and she's whole in herself and and she is she is worth in herself. So I think if you can transmit her this, sense of wholeness and a sense of worth, so that she doesn't take in any blame about anything and make it visible. Many times we are afraid of talking to our children to 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 not hurt them. It happened to me. The last time I saw my father, I was 8 years old, and the topic of my father, it was something that we never talked about in my family. And this invisibility is very, very important. It's very important. And so giving visibility to your daughter about her father and that the situation is not ideal, but that he loves her and that she doesn't take any blame. That's very valuable. That's my best advice.
Thank you, Marielle. Thank you for answering. And again, she's writing, my father keeps visiting and she loves being around her grandfather. She is the happiest with him. Thank you, Seema, for sharing.
She's very lucky to have your father. And she seems to enjoy it. So that is doing very good.
Okay, so this brings us to the end of our call, and we need to wrap up the call now, even though I want this conversation to continue, but we have another session in 5 minutes. So thank you, Marielle, for the wonderful time and for sharing and for clearing and all our questions, addressing our questions, and for answering them so brilliantly. And it was very lovely to connecting with you. Thank you so much for offering this course, and I'm very excited to be a part of this journey with other women. So we look forward to seeing some of you, maybe Garima, Seema, or other women with us on this journey. And if you want to know more details about the program, you can always get in touch with us, or you can go through our website. You can find all the details there. And if you still have any questions, or if there are any questions that will come up for you later, you can always connect with us. You can always message or call us. So thank you for your time, and thank you for joining. Thank you so much, Marielle and Seema.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Shalu. And see you around.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.